The truck is all back together. Everything is in. The box is in under the seat. There's that Titan logo. Looks really nice. Amplifier's in and connected right now to the laptop. Microphone is in place. We're getting ready to set everything up and do the tune on it. But before we get to any of that, there's a bunch of steps that have to go in place first. The software comes with a very general tune on it, but the thing I was talking about the other day, as we can see here, the volume is down, which is good because we have it on. We're not playing any source yet, but we don't want to play any music in here yet. Now we have to set this up. So the first step is setting in our input-output settings. How I like to set it up is go to Tools, Mixture Assistant, select All Off on both sides, and then for this we're just using inputs 1 and 2, and they are going to feed all of our outputs. I'm going to turn on inputs 1 and 2 that pass through super bass. Those are going to be for the mid bass. Go to my outputs. The first 4 for channels 1 through 4, and then the next 2 channels 7 and 8. The last 2 are subwoofers, and for this one we're going to be doing some de-equalization. For that we are going to be using channels 8 and 9. And so I'm just going to turn these on as a pass-through. This is going to give us a feed out of the RCAs into an IRTA2 to an iPad so that we can see what the factory radio is doing. We'll be shutting those off in the end. All right, so that sets up our input-output. Get out of there. I'm going to back up here a minute because I want to label all of my settings. Going back to device settings, we are bridging 7 and 8. Now that we have all of those set up, go to our main output page under remotes, and we need to set up the LR1 for subwoofer, and there's a min-max adjustment for it, on how low and how high you want it to go. Now we can go into our crossovers. That just sets up our basic channel routing, where the subwoofer level is going to do, and names our channels. So now on the side of the DSP, we know what channels are which. The tweeters, we need a high pass. We can drag the slider, or we can type it in. And as long as this green checkbox is on, it will automatically do both left and right channels at the same time. The next high pass is going to be for the mid-range, which we'll type in, and then a low pass for the top to match up to the tweeter. Mid-bass, high pass, and a low pass to match up to the mid-range. And you can change the crossover slopes if you would like. And subwoofer, you need a low pass. For our tuned output, we're going to make sure the slopes are set to flat. Next on the list is delay and polarity. With an ARC Audio DSP currently, measure the speakers and then you have to do some math. You have to subtract every speaker from the farthest speaker, which is usually going to be the passenger mid bass, and enter that in currently when this is being filmed. They're working on changing that, adding a calculator to it, but for right now we have to do it the old-fashioned way, which is, you know, math. Enter in all your math. This page you're looking at now is called the plot. You get to it by clicking Tools, Plot. What the plot does is pull up all of the information that you've just set up depending on what boxes are clicked here, and then you can turn them on and off simply by touching the top here. This allows you to go through and check to make sure that the crossover data that you put in is the same for all of the speakers. And then you can look at them all. This line here across the top is showing us outputs 9 and 10 because we have nothing attached to that. You can also check out the levels, fader, polarity. simply by touching here. Right now none of that is done, but this at least just gives us the ability to see all kinds of funness and do a little check. Just like in math, you check your work. This allows us to check our work. The first two things are done now. Equalizer is next, along with levels, tone control. But before we get to all of that, we need to jump into the car, check this, make sure we have sound, as well as do a polarity check to make sure all the speakers that we have in there are the right polarity. Turn up the volume so that we'll have audio. To do the polarity check, we'll grab the PT9A Plus, hop in the vehicle. When using a DSP while doing polarity testing, one of the advantages of being able to shut off all other speakers so that you can test just that one. It helps to minimize any false reads. Like right now we're playing the tweeter, and that gives us a green. We can mute that. Go to the mid-range, which is extremely close to it. Those two match, which is good. And because we're doing 24 dB link widths, we want them all to be the same color, either all reds or all greens. This is the caveat in this one, because we're keeping the factory rear speakers in there. We're gonna be fading it all the way to the front, but there might be an opportunity where he gets frisky and fades it to the rear. So with that in mind, we also wanna check to see what the rear speakers are doing, so that if he fades them back on, we don't get some weird like, what's going on? And those are green as well. Now some of the disadvantages of doing that are gonna be, these are gonna get way louder, way faster than the DSP. The DSP amplifier is gonna be more linear than the amplifier that's built into the factory radio. So what might happen at low volumes, these are just like, oh my gosh, so much louder. And then as you're ramping up these amplified speakers, they're just gonna keep getting louder and louder and louder, and these are gonna just start to distort and be crappy. So the best bet is to just not use them, but you can if you want. Now that we have the polarity test done, we can move on to the EQing of the car. Our microphone is in place, our software is running. We are using the audio controlled DMRTA. We're going to start by EQing in a specific order. We're gonna EQ that tweeter, then this tweeter, that mid-range, then this mid-range, that mid-bass, then this mid-bass. Now, along the way, we're gonna go tweeter, tweeter, both tweeters, mid-range, mid-range, both mid-range, tweeters, mid-range, then we're gonna do mid-range, mid-bass, mid-bass, both mid-bass, all speakers. So it's a whole little process that's gonna happen. And along the way, we'll make minor adjustments as needed. Let's take a look at what all that looks like now.